All right. Hello, everyone. For those of you who will be tuning in, I am simulcasting on my original Big Discussions 76 channel and also over on Big Discussions 76 Science and Technology. So I have one screen going here on the computer. I'm going to have another view on my phone here. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is a education, but also it's a Black History Month, but it's also an education. It's also a science stream as well. So let me take a look. Okay, so I am live over there. Stream as well. Let me turn that down. Disconnect the Bluetooth speaker. And yeah, I'll get turn the sound down. Okay, so I'll get this going. So I was thinking, no, he's not. No, he's not. That's hands-free. Officer Charles Faulkner does a joke. Sometimes he names himself based upon who the theme is. So tonight, I just for humor, I named myself Ben Carson. Though maybe, I was thinking this is a potentially volatile subject matter. So maybe I should change my name back to my name, because this is give me a second here. I'm going to change myself back to myself, because folks are coming in with 3 question marks. Is Ben Carson on the stream tonight? Hold on. Jay Bones, thank you for being here. I'm going to change back to myself. Boom. So I'm myself. So yeah, guys. So this is a potentially controversial stream. I mean, once I get to talking about what I'm going to talk about, our new style, what's going on, I think it'll be a little less controversial. But I think the name Ben Carson is just controversial all its own, and there's a reason I'm talking about this during Black History Month. But since I am simulcasting to my original channel and to this channel, I was thinking, which intro should I use? And I decided to go with the science intro. So I will talk to you guys on the other side. For those who are not subbed to the science channel, this will be your first time seeing this, but there are some pretty pictures in this. So I'll see you on the other side. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, my original channel. And then there are some people watching this over on Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. Well, it's Black History Month, and I've said in numerous videos, I think that all of our history is important. Uh, Black History Month is the shortest month out of the year. I forget when someone pointed that out to me and to the group I was in, but I think all of our history is important. And I think that there are particular figures that are highlighted in Black History Month, and there are figures who are not discussed. And tonight I wanted to, say some words about Dr. Ben Carson. Now, let me be clear. In saying what I'm going to say, I am not endorsing Dr. Carson's politics. I am not endorsing what his involvement in number 45's administration. I'm not endorsing his being the secretary of HUD or any of that. I'm not endorsing any of that. There's a specific part of his story that I want to focus on. So, and I'm going to get to that. Before I get to that, I want to show you two things. First of all, thank you, Jay Bones, for your support and for yet another super chat. And thank you for your support on all my streams and everything I'm doing. Speaking of everything I'm doing, going forward, I'm letting everybody know that I am a writer and I am working on a book. And I'm going to read something that I wrote tonight, actually. But this is my book project. I'm just going to flash this. This is in the description box below. It's called The Engineers of Western New York Basketball Story. It's a narrative story about what my high school basketball experience taught me about life, success, and failure going forward. That's in the description box below. I'm not going to belabor that. Also, I'm collecting a few more names for the Big Words LLC Newsletter. I want to thank everyone who has signed up, but I want to get a few more names before I send the first one out. This is below in the description box. There's a little greeting there, and then there is a subscription button there at the bottom. You have my promise that your information will not be abused or sold to another party. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Ben Carson. I'm going to go to my original blog now because I wrote something actually on the examiner.com first, probably about 8 years ago. No, yeah, about 8 years ago. And then I revisited it on my original blogging platform around the 2016 election when number 45 got elected. And well, as you'll see, I decided to revisit this because I saw how Ben Carson was getting dragged on social media. And I said, wait a minute, folks may not agree with his politics. They may not agree with the things he's saying, but let's not forget about what he's done and what he's contributed. And as I'll describe, I heard him speak when I was a graduate student at the University of Michigan. And I thought that night, I thought that he said something that was very, very important. I'm going to read this right now. So, let's see. If you haven't, please hit the like button. There it is. And I realized before I started this stream, I remembered how he was getting dragged on Twitter, and I was having flashbacks of the number 45's administration. And before I started this stream, I was thinking, okay, do I really want to do this stream? Because it sparks, these things spark such visceral reactions. Anyway, this is a short piece. I wrote this. It's called Ben Carson's education story and what it means revisited. So that's what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about, I'm not visiting what happened in the Trump administration. I'm not talking about what he said in the Republican primary, any of that. I actually looked up, did a quick scan of Wikipedia to fact check myself. And I read about some of the things that were happening with him in number 45's administration and afterwards with his son. And then, oh boy. Anyway, this reads as follows. And I took out this excerpt here. It says, through it all, his mother, who was a single parent, vehemently encouraged Carson and his brother to read anything they could as often as they could. So his mother, his parents were actually married. But during that critical phase of his education, his mother and his father had split because his father had a family from a previous marriage, which was still legally in place. So his mother wasn't a quote unquote single mother. She was married and divorced. Some people, for some people, that's an important distinction. Anyway, let's jump in. Once again, if you haven't, please hit the like button. One of the principles of my blog is critical thought. I originally published this piece on the Examiner in the fall of 2015 during the historic 2016 presidential election, from which President Donald J. Trump emerged the victor. The legendary neurosurgeon, Dr. Benjamin Carson, was one of the many candidates in the Republican primary. His alignment with the Republican primary and his subsequent position in the Trump administration caused him to fall from grace in Black America and to be discarded altogether by some, which I feel is unfortunate. I'm republishing this piece for Black History Month 2019 to remind everyone of where Dr. Carson came from, what he accomplished, and that others can do it too. So if you guys remember that Republican primary, there were 8 people in there. That was a huge primary. Very interesting to watch. Very lively. First off, this article was not written with the intention of endorsing any presidential candidate. Anytime an African American aligns with the Republican Party, it raises suspicions within our community and often sparks ridicule. This year, Dr. Benjamin Carson is hoping to win the Republican nomination for the United States presidency. Admittedly, it surprised me years ago upon discovering his political affiliation. At the time of this article's publication, the Huffington Post's current data shows that Dr. Carson is second only to Donald Trump in the field of candidates vying for the Republican presidential nomination. It will be really interesting to see if he'll hold second place or even ascend to first place by the time the final candidate is selected. So looking back, as we know, he didn't. He didn't. Okay. If you haven't, please hit the like button for this stream. Carson's messages have included denouncing the Common Core education standards, securing the Mexican border, the southwest border, and more stringent immigration policies and reformation of the tax code, to name a few. At his own peril and at the risk of alienating African Americans, he also openly questioned the Black Lives Matter movement. While many see Carson simply as this year's token African American conservative candidate seeking the Republican presidential nomination, he holds a different significance for me. During my graduate studies at the University of Michigan, Dr. Carson, who was a Michigan Medical School alumnus, returned as the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaker one year. Then the dean of neurosurgery at the Johns Hopkins University, he'd already become famous. He made several points during his speech, but those which stood out to me most focused on his youth in inner city Detroit. Early in his life, during the civil rights era, Benny, as he was referred to, was actually an underachiever academically and was viewed as unintelligent by his classmates and teachers. So, what was interesting was he was the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaker that year. I was at the University of Michigan in graduate school from 1999 to 2005. So it was in that range. And at that point, Dr. Carson was he was a rock star. I think it was at Hill Auditorium on campus, and the auditorium was full. And I had only heard of Ben Carson when I got to the University of Michigan because I was in something called the Association of Minority Scientists, which basically, yeah, it was both male and female, but it was the PhD candidates. It was the scientists. It wasn't the medical students. And I remember someone said, "Hey, if we can get Ben Carson to come, that will be huge." I didn't know who Ben Carson was, and I think it's interesting because I attended an HBCU in the biological sciences, and I don't remember his name ever coming up. When he separated the conjoined twins, that was in the late 1980s, and I was at my HBCU in the late 1990s and the late 1990s. So I thought it was interesting that his name didn't come up. If it did, I don't remember it. But for someone to do what he did, you would think that at a HBCU with several students saying they want to go to medical school, you would think that that name would be out there more readily, but it wasn't. So this was my first time hearing about him. Um, yeah. So through it all, his mother, who was a single parent, again by divorce, vehemently encouraged Carson and his brother to read anything they could as often as they could. After years of academic underachievement, the light finally switched on for young Ben Carson, and he realized that he too could use his mind to achieve scholastically and make something of himself. He, of course, went on to become a world renowned neurosurgeon, where his famous feat was the separation of the conjoined twins. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of this stream. There's an empowerment message within Ben Carson's story for everyone, whether or not he ascends to the presidency. He's a symbol that one can make it out of a single parent household in less than ideal conditions. His success wasn't an accident, nor was it luck. It was due to his mother's oversight and vigilance. Data from Kids Count spanning from 2009 to 2013 show that the African American community leads the nation in children in single parent families over all other ethnic groups during that interval. So at that time, it was 67% versus 25% for non Hispanic whites. The reasons for this data clearly vary and are regularly discussed and debated. While it is greatly accepted that having both parents at home is ideal, not having both doesn't have to necessarily be a hindrance. For me, that's one of the significances of Ben Carson's story. While money, state of the art facilities, books, and computers are important, Ben Carson's story and messages points to the value and love for education as being the key pieces in a child's academic achievement and securing of an independent and productive life. This is assuming the instilling of other important values such as a work ethic and integrity as well. Once again, while a two-parent home is ideal, it isn't always necessary. It isn't always a necessary circumstance for kids to go on to achieve success. In closing, Ben Carson's story points to the fact that schools alone can't educate children and that it requires collaboration with parents. In his recent article entitled, How Can Parental Involvement in Schools Improve? Michael J. Ryan argues that public education is a collective commitment between the school system and families where both have to do their part for a child's success. In the end of his piece, he suggests that it is time to have all families sign a covenant or contract with their respective schools, compelling them to do their part to help their child's education, as Ben Carson's mother did for him. So we're at the end here. The picture used in this post comes straight from the University of Michigan Medical School. There's a corridor there in the vast medical school complex where the walls are lined with collages of pictures of every medical class going back to the early 20th century. Sometimes during graduate school, I'd walk that corridor to access the school's cafeteria around lunchtime, the medical school. I stumbled across Dr. Carson's picture one day with his medical class. As you can see, he's in his mid to late 20s or early 30s and is wearing an afro. I took this picture recently when I returned to the University of Michigan for homecoming weekend. And here I list out some other Black history related pieces that I wrote. But yeah, this picture, if you go to the University of Michigan Medical School, that picture is actually there. There are collages all up and down the hallway of medical classes going back to the I think since the medical school opened, which is at this point is probably over 100 years ago. And so there were days when I'd go from my research lab down to the cafeteria and I'd look at the pictures and, look to see who I knew. Obviously, I knew I knew folks in the more recent classes, but once I figured out who Ben Carson was, I stopped and I said, "Oh, that's Ben Carson. That's his class, and he did go to medical school here." So, that's the significance of that part of his story. Now we know that he separated those conjoined twins. I'm going to talk about that next. I was going to read one more article, one more of my blog posts, but I'm going to keep this short, and I'm just going to keep this short. But his claim to fame was actually this. This article is below in the description box. It's entitled, and I did link to this in my own blog post. This is entitled "The Story of the Surgery That Made Ben Carson Famous and Its Complicated Aftermath." So, it's been depicted. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but it's been depicted in I think the movie Gifted Hands, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. And in this article, it talks about I think that's his superior there, Donlin Long. And I think Dr. Long talks about how at the end of the surgery, when they're about to make the final incision on the two twins, Carson actually gave Long the scalpel to do it, but Long said, "No, you do it." So Carson actually got the credit for separating the twins. But this was a very, very complicated, a very, very complicated procedure because the twins were joined at the head. And so they needed cardiovascular, they needed cardiologists there, they needed cosmetic surgeons there, they needed a whole entire team of surgeons there to perform this operation. The two twins were from Germany, and the two twins could have died during the procedure. It's all discussed in this article, but what's not talked about often is what happened to the twins afterwards. And it turns out that they went back to Germany and they still had very, very difficult lives in terms of developing into healthy adults, and they did not develop into healthy adults. Um, One of them died, I think, in their 20s, and the other one, I think, is still alive, but he couldn't speak. So even though they performed this procedure, this um, groundbreaking, pioneering procedure, those two conjoined twins didn't have healthy lives afterwards. And but this was just the first procedure that Carson had done. This was the first one. He'd done several more up into the late 1990s, and I think as the more of these operations that they did, the better the outcomes became. The outcomes became, and you see that often in science. The first time doing one, it doesn't turn out well, or it turns out average. And then the more and more it's done, um, it gets more and more. The outcomes become better and better. So that's what I wanted to say about this. I was going to read another blog post about um, some of my father's reflections on education, because my father is a retired educator himself, and I might, following Toya's lead, I might have my father up here at some point to talk about his experiences as an educator. Toya has had her mother um, on her channel, and it might be worthwhile to have my father come on and talk about his experiences as an educator. But my father, I'll just show this to you guys, and then I'll wrap up. Unless someone wants to come up and say something, my father basically echoed he basically echoed what Ben Carson's mother did. And he basically said that in the latter stages of my teaching career, we couldn't get the parents on board. And because we couldn't get the parents on board, the kids didn't do so well. So I'll probably address this in another stream, but this is a universal thing. Parental involvement in a child's education. That really means a lot. But my whole point of writing this piece, I wrote the original piece before he attempted to go for the presidency. So when I originally wrote this, I had no idea that he was going for the Republican nomination. And then when I saw how he was getting dragged on social media, on Black Twitter, and by a lot of people, I kind of said, okay, well, wait a minute. Let me bring this essay back, because I did see him speak live when I was a graduate student. He was not always Dr. Ben Carson. He wasn't a good student early on, and a lot of classmates thought that he was a dummy. He did rebound. He did figure it out because of the vigilance um, of his mother, and he went on to do some very, very great things. And I think that stood out to me because I wasn't always a good student. I wasn't always Dr. Dunbar. I mean, there were a number of years in K through 12 when I didn't understand how to study. There were a number of years where I didn't understand how to just sit down and focus and do my work. And there were a number of years where I didn't see myself achieving academically. And I didn't figure it out until I got to college. And that allowed me to go ahead and do my PhD. So I think, regardless of what happened in his political life, and regardless of his politics, there's something very, very important about his story. I'm gonna I'm at 30 minutes here. I'm gonna drop the StreamYard link in case someone wants to come up and say something. If not, I'll just shut this down. I've been sitting at this workstation since this morning, teleworking. But I wanted to note this for Black History Month. This is someone we don't normally associate with Black history. Um, this is someone who arguably alienated himself from Black America in the United States because of its politics. But then the question is, do we can we still pull important parts? Can we still pull important things from a person's life even when they've um, gone a different way in terms of politics? Are their contributions still important even if we don't agree philosophically with them politically, and vice versa? That's the question that I find myself asking, and that's the question I think about when I look at someone like Ben Carson. And I think that in the last political cycle, I think that's something we all dealt with even on the ground level. Can we all still be friends? Can we all still agree, even if we disagree politically on some issues? And I don't think for someone like him, I don't think it was necessarily a wise choice for him to get involved in the Trump administration. I don't, and for me, I have a bot coming in here. Hold on. I'm trying to block this bot. Okay, it's not letting me block that. But for me, yeah, it was um strange seeing him go into the Trump administration and to oversee HUD. I thought that he would go in. I thought that he should have gone in if he was going to get involved and be the Surgeon General or be over health and human services. I thought that with his skill set and his knowledge and expertise, that's where he belonged. But for whatever reason, he was put in charge of HUD. And if you go and read his Wikipedia page, um, some folks felt that HUD was directionless, and there were things that he clearly did not know about housing once he got in there. So it wasn't the best fit for him. Um, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Uh, this is my first time simulcasting from one channel to two YouTube channels, but I wanted to do that because medicine is a science. He was a neurosurgeon, and he did some that separation of the conjoined twins that had never been done before. So I thought there was something that was worth presenting over here, his education story, and also I thought it was something I thought discussing the conjoined twins was important scientifically. So that's why I broadcasted to 2 different channels. I might do this again because I want to talk about Percy Julian. I want to talk about the Black astronauts. I want to cover parts of Black history that often are not covered. Oftentimes, we look at our civil rights leaders like Dr. King, John Lewis, those kinds of people, but we seldom talk about our scientists, our astronauts, our pioneers in those areas. So, um, I'll let this go for 5 more minutes. The link is there if anyone wants to come up and say something. I know, again, before I did this stream, I kind of wondered to myself, should I cover Dr. Ben Carson? Because this is a very he became a polarizing individual. I acknowledge that. Um, and there are people who don't even care about uh, what he did in the medical field, just his political leanings. But I think, again, it's important to think about um, his entire life and what he did before he got into politics. So anyhow, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. I've been sitting here since this morning. So thank you to everyone who sat and listened to this. Oh, doctor's order. You said gifted hands made me go to medical school. Doctor's order. If you want to come up and say a few words, if you're available, you might be in the hospital right now doing a surgery yourself. But if you want to come up and say something really quickly, and what about gifted hands inspires you, I'm going to drop the link right there, and you're welcome to come up. If anyone wants to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are right here. Should have posted those earlier. I don't have a super chat over on my science and technology channel. I'm trying to get the watch hours up. But I suspect doctor's order, he's probably busy or in the clinic right now himself. Professor Black Ops says salute. What's going on, Professor Black Ops? And Shika Maru says thank you for the work you do. Salute. Thank you for stopping through over on the Science Channel, Shika. I know that again, this isn't a popular because of his politics. This isn't a popular individual. So, but all of our lives are complex. We're all multifaceted, as Charles says. Okay, guys, look out for more. It's Black History Month, and I have some other things that I want to do. So this may be the first of many simulcasts to both channels. But if you're watching on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to throw something in the tip jar, that information is below. Everyone, stay safe out there. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.